So we encountered a situation in which we are going to get more than one rows in return. For example, we entered some of the student entered the same roll number many times, and that's why in return they were getting more than one rows. But it was giving an error saying that the select statement is returning more than one rows or sort of error. So in that case, we have to use cursors because it is a but obvious situation that your select statement will return more than one queries, and you need to deal with one row at a time. You need that provision to work with one row at a time from the result set, isn't it? So that provision is provided by cursors in PLSQL. Okay. So we'll see a very small example. We'll use the same result table that is currently visible to you, and we'll try to extract some rows from this table and perform some operation with the result set. Okay. So one thing to note down is a cursor will always work from within a stored procedure. It is not an explicit entity, so you will have to declare and use the cursor from within a stored procedure. So to begin with, we'll create a stored procedure for our demo. So for example, create procedure it is any parameter to it as such. Okay, so here I'm going to declare a couple of variables, maybe of integer type. Now, whenever we are going to fetch one row at a time from the collection of rows that we are going to put in the cursor, we will require some variable to operate with, right? So in that case, for example, I am fetching through my cursor, I am fetching a set of records, but in those records there is only one column. For example, it is total marks, right? So in that case, I will require a variable into which I will put the total marks when I will deal with one row. For example, I've got all these 4 rows in my result set. I've through my cursor, I have fetched all the rows from the result table, and I have only fetched this column, total marks. Fine. So in that case, I will require a variable which will hold this 58, then it will hold 40, and likewise. So for that reason, we have taken the variable A, and B is a variable which we will utilize to break out of my loop, because we are going to deal with one row at a time. There will occur a situation where we will reach the end of our result set, isn't it? So to recognize that situation and to break out of the loop, we will require some variable, right? It may be a Boolean variable, but I have taken it as an integer type. Fine. Okay. So after that, we will have to declare our cursor. Now, very simple to declare the cursor. Declare keyword as usual. Name of the cursor. For example, we give C1 as the name of our cursor. Declare C1 cursor for. Now, for the select statement, which is going to fetch the result set from the table, that select statement will come here after for, right? So I'll type select. We are going to fetch only one column. So name of the column is total marks from the results. Got this? So whatever is the result set returned by this select query, that will be stored in which cursor? That will be stored in cursor C1. Understood? Now, since we have declared the cursor, we also need to declare a situation in which we will be accessing the cursor, right? One record. And once we reach the end of the cursor, we have to handle that situation, because at that time we will try to fetch a record from the cursor, but there will be no record available. So for that we have handlers, just like we have exception handling in case of conventional programming languages. In PLSQL we are having the concept of handler. So we will declare a handler over here, continue handler. So what it does, when we will reach the end of our cursor, at that time it will allow us to continue with the remaining code, whatever PLSQL code is remaining, right? So we are declaring a continue handler for which situation? For not found situation. And we will not find a record from the resultant set. At that time, this exception will be raised and it will be handled by the continue handler. Okay, so this is the situation and this is the handler we are going to use, right? But if this situation occurs, what corrective action we need to take? Excuse me. What corrective actions we need to take, that we will define after this exception condition, that is not found, right? So how to do that? If this situation occurs that a record is not found anymore from the cursor, then we will set the value of b to 1. Okay, if you remember, I told that we are going to use b as our terminating condition, right? So if this situation occurs, we will set the value of b as 1. Okay, fine. Now we are done with the prerequisites. We have declared our cursor also. The second step in performing the cursor is to, we will open up the cursor. Now since we have to, just a minute. Since we have to access the cursor one at a time, we will have to open the cursor firstly, and then just a minute. Okay. We will have to open our cursor with the open keyword, open cursor name, right? Once we have opened, we will have to fetch the records from the result or from the cursor. But this fetching activity will not be performed only once, because we are not sure whether the select query has returned us only one record or it has returned us more than one records. For the same reason, we are going to use loop, and in that loop we are going to place our statement, right? So usually in PLSQL we have 2-3 ways to use loops, one of which is the keyword repeat, right? We'll see another example in which we'll see how to use the keyword loop. Here we are using repeat, right? So repeat, what activity? Repeat the activity of fetching. So fetch from C1 into a variable A that we have already deployed, right? Fetch from C1 already deployed, right? Fetch from C1 into A. right? What it will do, it will fetch one total marks value, which is now available currently in C1, and it will put that value into this variable A. Understood this? Fine. Okay. Now, how long do we need to do this? How long this activity will continue? Yes, anyone? Yes.
Till p is equal to 1.
Yeah, exactly. So until unless our cursor ends, end of our cursor is found and this handler is activated, this activity of fetching will continue. And once our handler is invoked, in that case, the value of B will be 1. So we have to specify here until.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Could you please scroll up? We can't see anything after the repeat statement.
Yeah. Is it fine?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So we have put a until keyword until B equals to 1. So for this much time, this fetch activity will take place. Fine. That is it. We will end our loop. So we'll put a end repeat statement here. We will close our cursor because its work is already done. Now we will have either we can end it over here, or if we are to return some value, suppose there was a out parameter to this particular procedure. In that case, we would have set the value of out parameter, or if we would have been using a function, in that case we would have put a return statement over here. But since we are using no parameters over here, we will simply end our procedure. Then simply, since we have not used any out parameter, we'll not be able to observe the value of A because okay, in this case we'll not be able to observe what value in A because we have not used any out parameter over here. If there was an out parameter before we end the procedure, we would have set the value of that out with the current value of A at the point where we left the loop. At that point, the value of A would have been what? It would have been the last value of total marks, that is 45. So we would have assigned that value of A to our out parameter, and then we would have end our procedure. In that case, if we would have called our procedure proc new, and we would have to pass a parameter, right? Like this, we would have to pass a parameter in which the computed value would have been returned, and then we would have simply put a select statement like select @para, and we would have observed that the value 45 would have been printed, right? But since I forgot to put an out parameter over here, nevertheless it will execute, but as I told, since we have not returned, it will not return any value to us. Understood the concept? So this is what we are expected to perform, but the practical that we are dealing with is we have two tables. Let me display the tables for you. Select score. Okay. So this is an old roll call table, and this is the new roll call table, right? So I think yeah, both are having the same entries. I'll have to put a value. Number 8 example, maybe ABC. Address is right. So uh, we have one more entry in our old table. So the practical goes like this. We have two tables, old roll call. Here I have used O roll call and new roll call. So it is used as N roll call, right? So we have to use a cursor, compare these two tables or compare the rows of these two tables, right? And if we find that if there are some certain records which are present in the old roll call table but they are not present in the new roll call table, then we are going to put that record into our new roll call table. So basically what we are expected to do, we are expected to merge these two tables, but whichever are the common those entries will be simply avoided. Understood? So in order to do that, we are writing a cursor, right? So the standard procedure that we are going to follow here is that in our cursor we are going to fetch all these records from the old table. Okay. In the cursor we are going to fetch all the records from our old table, and then one at a time we will be focusing only on the roll number column, and one at a time the roll number of the cursor or the fetched record from the cursor will be compared with the roll number of our new table. If the record is existing in the new table, then we are not going to insert it into the new table. Understood? But if the record is not existing in the new table, then in that case we are going to insert that record. For example, in this case, the first 7 rows will not be inserted, and the 8th row, since roll number 8 does not exist in the new table, it will be inserted. Understood? So let me demonstrate that as well, so that, and in this example we will another loop. Fine. Fine. So as usual, we'll create a procedure for it. Procedure maybe we don't require any input or output parameter because we are going to insert, and whatever is the output we'll be able to see the result by selecting the new table as we execute the procedure. Fine. So we don't need any input parameter. We'll begin. Again, what values we are going to deal with, how many variables do we require? One for handling the exit condition from the loop, and one in which we are going to fetch the values. That is, we are going to fetch the value from the cursor and put it into that variable. So here we are dealing with the roll number column. So we'll require one variable called as roll. Called as roll. So I'll take a variable roll of integer type point, and we'll use a boolean type of variable now. It loop is the name of the variable. Type is boolean. Fine. So we have taken two variables that required. Now is the time to declare our cursor. So there again we'll use the same thing. C1 cursor for. Now here comes our select statement. Right? What is the select statement? We are going to fetch this column RNO from our old table, old roll call table, right? So for RNO from right, that is what we are going to find. Now again, if the cursor result set of the cursor ends, the exception will be raised, and we require some mechanism to handle that exception. So we'll use again declare continue handler for whatever it is, and we'll set the exit loop variable that we have used to a value true. Obviously cases don't matter here. You can use upper, lower, any case if you want. So that is done. The declaration portion is over. Here again we will have to, before we operate with the cursor, we will have to open the cursor. We'll use the command open C1. Done. Now we used the repeat keyword. Initially we used the repeat keyword in order to operate in a loop, right? Here we can use the loop keyword, and if we want, we can even name our loop. Here I'll use suppose I use the label as my loop, right? So I name my loop so that if I'm going to use more than one loops in my procedure, it is convenient for me to handle them, right? My loop. Fine. We are into the loop now. We are going to fetch our cursor, one record of the cursor, and put it into our variable. So what our cursor is going to fetch? It is only going to fetch the roll number from our old roll call table, and we are accessing those roll numbers which are present in C1 cursor currently, one at a time, and as we access them, we are going to put that roll number into the variable roll. Understood? Yeah. Next, what we need to do, as soon as we get one roll number from our cursor, as I told earlier, we'll have to check whether that roll number is existing in my new roll call table or not, right? So how do we do that? We have an operator in PLSQL called as not exists. Right. And to that operator we pass a subquery, right? Whatever is the result of, if the subquery, obviously it will be a select query, if that subquery returns some result set or it returns some rows, in that case this operator not exist will return a false value, and if this subquery select query does not return any row, in that case this operator will return it. And we want to operate condition is true, since we are dealing with if If this condition goes true, then we are going to perform, right? So for that reason, we are using not exists, right? So what we are going to check, select star from which table we are going to check, the new roll call table, right? So select star from new roll call where RNO, which is a column in the new roll call table, is equal to roll, which is our variable. So if there exists a row in the new table whose roll number is matching with the roll value that we have fetched from our C1 cursor that contains the roll numbers from our old roll call table, if there is a row returned by this select query, in that case the if condition will go wrong. It will be false, right? But if there is a situation in which the roll number is not matching, in that case it will return a null result set, and since not exists is having a true value, if the result set is not returned, this condition will go true, and then we are going to perform the further action if this is the situation, right? So if this roll number does not exist in new roll call table, then what we have to do? Yes, now we have to just insert that roll number into our new roll call table, isn't it? Since the roll number from old roll call table did not exist, we are going to simply insert it. So insert into n roll call. What we have to insert? A simple select query we can fire to fetch all the columns from old roll call where RNO is equal to roll. So what we are going to do, in order to insert that row into our new table, we are going to fetch the same row from the or all the columns from the old roll call table where the roll number goes like this of the matching criteria, and then whatever row is fetched, the same row is going to be added into our new roll call table. That is how this query works. I hope this is clear, right? Fine. This is the end of our if. Yes. Now, since we are working in a loop, we will check in every iteration of the loop. We will have to check whether the exit condition is met or not. So we'll have to check for exit underscore loop is equal to if exit underscore loop, then because the value of exit loop variable itself will be true or false, so we did not compare it with anything else. So if it is true, then what do? We will have to simply close our cursor in this case, isn't it? And the second activity that we have to do is we have to break out of this loop. So in order to break in PLSQL, we use the keyword leave and name of the loop. So leave the loop, my loop, right? Understood this? Very simple. Okay. Here we will end our if, that is this one, this if not exists. This inner if statement will get executed once we reach the end of our cursor. But other times when we are working inside the cursor, this end if will get executed since this exit loop condition will be false. Okay. Thereafter, we have to make sure that our loop ends conventional ends conventionally also my loop, because we have to put an end to the loop as well conventionally, and then we will end our procedure. Yeah. Fine. Okay. So it's done without any errors. Good. Fine. Now what we need to do, simply, as we expect, the current situation is that if you are able to observe the new roll call table, there are 7 roll numbers, 1 to 7, and in our old roll call table there are 8 roll numbers. So we expect this eighth record from the old roll call table to be added to the new roll call table as soon as we execute our procedure. So we'll call the procedure. The name is proc underscore. Yeah. We'll select. So this is our. If you are able to see this, this is our new roll call table in which the record got inserted. Understood? Obviously, there is no change in the old table. It will remain the same.